Hello, everybody. My name is Trollmaker,
I'm Griver.
and we're doing a Wargame cast today, blue versus red. In the blue, we have a team from Reddit, SZPYRKA10, Gunnerz, and Kairae.
And on the blue side, we have Hitman, Fox,
Spizpirka10 has gone with a US deck. This gives him access to a giant line of Abrams and one Patton. These are very heavy, potent tanks. He also gains access to that nasty Patriot missile as well as the ATACMS. On his air front, he has the Apache helicopter, very expensive and potent, the Nighthawk, and the Raven, all to provide that nice power combination for dealing with enemy tank pushes. Gunnerz is rolling around with the Eurocorps deck. He has a lot of very expensive vehicles, tanks, helicopters, planes all around. He also has the Mars rocket artillery, which, generally speaking, a lot of players enjoy spamming the entire game. Kairae has gone for a purely French deck. He has doubled up on his Raphael CF1s and has a very high quantity of large number of tanks and infantry. He has also invested very heavily into his anti-air as part of his strategy, and also has a tfAgza HAP, which will be a very effective anti-air helicopter combined with the Gazelle Celtic. Hitman is giving many love to the Eastern Europeans playing this Eastern Bloc deck. He's gone for some of these mid-range T-72s as well as the Moderna, which is a much more expensive heavy tank and probably the best one that they have to offer. His air strategy is involved with a lot of anti-radar capability, as well as a few bombers, but not so much for air superiority. His unit choices are rather limited, has absolutely no manpads available to him. Based Fox, playing something very radical, an Eastern Bloc armor deck. This gives him access to an insanely high number of tanks, and he's chosen quite a few very expensive tanks. This could work very heavily against him, considering how low the income will be. This is a 2v2 map with 3 players. Cav has a generic USSR deck. He has a mix of medium and heavy tanks. He has expensive and powerful anti-air ground options, and he also has that nasty short-range Buratino, which can completely evaporate giant legions of infantry.
and Cav.
All right, so this map is Paddy's Field. What are
Is it
your
well, it's a 2v2 map, or according to Eugen, it's a 2v2 map. So without the mod that allows you to change the income rate, your max points, starting points allowed will be 3,000, which still gives you the ability to play a proper 3v3.
and it's really odd of Eugen to always make these 2v2 maps 3 flanks. So you think in team games that 3 flanks is just indicative of the 3v3.
You would. Um, Usually a good strategy, at least in the team games, you'll sometimes see a doubled side on the Bravo India on the 3v3, or you sometimes see the double push down the middle. Because there's really 3 ways to play this. You can play the one person on, each side, one in the middle, one on the left, and one on the right. But then you could also play, 2 in the middle or 2 up top, and you leave hotel kind of as a giveaway zone, if you catch my drift there.
And the hotel zone itself is kind of awkward because it leads into these 2 point golf bases, which are so far away, which is actually exactly the same as the middle, except not as far away.
They do. One downside of this map is that if you lose control of the other side of the bridge leading to the middle area, it's really hard to come back across that bridge because all your units will choke point, especially if you have them grouped in more than a unit of 2. They start to bump into each other on the bridge, which causes them to slow down and not get across. Makes them take extra fire from the side shots and whatnot.
I'm not sure how much time we'll have left before the game starts, but it's worthwhile looking at some of the units that these players are bringing out here. The Martyr VTS-1 being chosen as a ground-based approach. The Martyr VTS-1 is basically a vehicle killer and has been around for quite a while. And he's pairing it off with the Paw Tiger, and if Hitman's crew were to in fact go for a 2-base push, Gunnerz would be in a lot of trouble, seeing as he has mostly ground units. On the other flank here, we have another pretty largely ground base, but they're investing insanely high in anti-air. They have a tfAgza HAP, they have a lot of these Mistrals, and a ridiculous number of Avengers.
Yeah, I want to say the blue team's going for more of the standard strategy of one person playing on each area. They're going to have, Gunnerz go up top on the plateau. The other player will go towards the middle. And the guy with US is going to go towards hotel.
And we do have a match commencement. A little bit of luck here for Gunnerz. He'll be facing Hitman one-on-one. Here's. In fact, it looks like everyone's going to be splitting up evenly around all flanks.
Yeah, no, so it'll all come down to more of the player's skills and not so much on who's best at holding against a 2v1.
I feel like Reddit might be at a slight disadvantage. They have gone pretty heavily in anti-air support right now, and there's no real air units being deployed here by Hitman's crew, so right off the bat they could see a distinct disadvantage in terms of troop push-ups.
We do have a Mirage napalm bomber coming in for hotel though, or India. I feel it's a little late though. Usually you want to try to get that bridge prior to the people coming up, or you want to hit on that ridge a little earlier. But that Mirage somehow miraculously made it out alive.
They went for a very, very weird location. Now, it's all tanks here, so nothing is really going to take a ton of damage. And, in fact, everything will survive.
You usually want to go a little bit farther down the road just to get cut off that way nothing can drive around it. They would have to drive through the flames if they wanted to approach the sector.
I think it might have been a late points investment. Like he probably just had 20 or 30 points that he needed for that in order to make that work.
Could be. We did have some nice snipes from Fox against the Avengers in Hotel, clearing both of those out. And that will leave the tanks very open to any type of other air attack, as they have no AA.
And I mean, this Tiger Hap is being pushed off, or tfAgza Hap, I should say, is being pushed off by this Tunguska. And there's also the KA-52. This is such a deadly, deadly unit as an opening move.
The Raven did get a nice snipe, though, on the Tunguska that had its gun on. And it looks like the Sea Hornet was able to take out one of the BUs, which was a nice pickup.
But picked off by itself by the MiG-23 ML. So lots of jostling happening here. There's no clear winners. Everyone's kind of just sitting on various flanks trying to capture as much as possible. A KA-52 might go down. That is absolutely brutal. Helicopters will crash. And looking towards the middle flank here, that's where most of the action seems to be happening. And it looks like the Fox is trying to swing around some tanks to try and get a better position. But unfortunately, these Milans are just able to fire in the distance and push them back.
I'm not much of a fan of the Torty, personally. I think it's a little overpriced for what you get.
Whenever I see those kind of units, I always think it's just people's play style. That they're just like, I'm the Torty guy.
Mm-hmm.
So I gotta make the Torty.
You did have a nice snipe on that longbow, though, going down. Nice pickup there. Longbows are definitely a dangerous killer.
There's just so much anti-air in this map that I'm surprised that any of these sides are using air at all. There's like a pocket full of these Mistrals in the middle. On the northern flank, things are roughly even, but looks like the bush area that allows you to advance will in fact be going to Hitman. and there's not really a ton of defenses available. Just a single Leopard 1A5 and a pocket of anti-tank teams in the woods that probably won't even be able to get vision proper.
The one thing this map does promote is early CVs out on the field are really early aggression to counter that. Because there's so many +2 zones on the map that if you don't capture your +2 zones, you can definitely fall 100, 200 points behind, and that's really hard to come back from. Especially later on as the game progresses. It gives you a lot of breathing room to where you can fall back if you need to and, you know, regroup, and it's not the end of the game. As we're seeing the NATO team bringing out more CVs for their +2 zones, and we're not really seeing any CVs brought out by the red team, so that could prove detrimental to them.
And it's going to come into how successful their pushes are right now. They're bringing out a lot of units to try and take out that northern 2-point Bravo base. There is a single PAH-2 Tiger there that is basically stopping any sort of tank push and allowing for Gunnerz to actually fortify this location. He's got not one, but he has 2 Tor radar rockets to try and knock down this Tiger.
Yeah, the Tor is an amazing kind of multi-role purpose. It doesn't have the long range of the Tunguska M towards helicopters, but it does have a much longer range versus planes. However, the downside is that it is radar, so kind of get that multi-role radar AA piece, which does come in handy if you can really only bring, you know, one set and you don't have the points to bring out both the Tunguska and the Tor, or the Buck.
Rather interestingly, the southern hotel base, it looks like our red team is trying to use this to create a flank against the middle, as opposed to actually pushing down any of these lines. Which doesn't actually seem that useful. Of course, they don't know what units are on the map, but what we see here is basically nothing. Nothing on the southern flank.
Yeah, I mean, we do have, looks like the MiG-23 ML was able to take a snipe off that Jaguar that was flying around, so that'll be very helpful for later on in the game without having that seed aircraft to snipe the AA units.
And you only get so many of those.
Exactly. You need them to last as long as possible. I feel like PAC's resorting to a lot of bombers where if they'd brought out more land forces, they probably might have been able to penetrate a lot heavier.
They have a lot of successes here, and it's not all that clear why they're not pushing at them. The southern flank was just absolutely destroyed. There's a Spetsnaz guru trying to figure out like what's going on down there, but like there's nothing there. They could test the waters with a vehicle and find there's nothing. In the middle flank, you know, they have tons of forces here, tons. They're all weakened. They need supply trucks, and supply trucks are just not coming out.
No, they're not. Both teams are investing very heavily in planes, and it looks like a longbow is being rallied out as well.
And like all this airplay is really weird because the NATO side have really shown their hand. They're playing very heavily on anti-air. They have tons of these infantry Mistrals. They have lots of Mistral recon vehicles. They're not weak in that regards.
Oh, that Raphael barely made it out alive. That would have been a very nice pickup for PAC if they were able to get that.
One of the most powerful fighters in the game going down is a game changer.
It is. I mean, you've invested over almost 200 points in a plane that is only out, you know, a certain amount of time, and then it has to refuel and rearm and stuff. But it does give you a nice protection envelope over, you know, some coverage to protect yourself against the enemy. I mean, like I was saying, that early CV that NATO brought, PAC didn't really utilize that 100 points that they had over their opponent by buying that CV, and now they're over 100 points in the deficit on the scoreboard now. So now PAC is forced to have to be the aggressor. They can't allow the game to stalemate.
There's still one more 2-point base they haven't claimed in the Delta location. Uh, Possibly just because it's too easy to bomb.
It could be. I mean, there's not really a lot of nice places to hide it. You can hide it in that city or kind of in the bushes off to the side. Or just, you can also hide it in that bush at the very top on the road. But, I mean, you can also just hide it in the middle of the open. There's not nearly as many as on a lot of these other sectors. It's kind of like hotel. There's very select places that it could go.
And all it would take is one of these recon helicopters to suicide to find that. And it wouldn't take much. Looks like we'll see bleeding beginning again. There's no real commands coming out for...
It looks like Hitman has just purchased the CV for India. So that'll counter the Delta CV. However, they'll probably get up to about 130 by the time it gets in position.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's desperate need of supplies by Base Fox. Like, you look at all his tanks, they're getting their veterancy up, but they just need to be resupplied, refilled up, and he's actually moving them up into the Leclerc line.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of his tanks have only like 1 bar, 3 bars. His Torty's still at full health, but it is running low on fuel, so be careful because it might not make it, barely might make it back to Mike as long as he doesn't push too far on Lima with it.
And there it goes, killed embarrassingly by an AMX-10.
Yeah, definitely a good pickup there by the AMX-10. And we are having some Mars fired into those woods, but there's not really anything for it to hit other than maybe the Sopal. It does take about half a bar off.
Yeah, definitely didn't pay off the number of resources that were used. If he doesn't move that Mars actually really soon, we're going to see some counter-artillery battery destroy it.
We might, although Pact hasn't bought any actual artillery, and they did buy the 2 prams that they're using to smoke the city. But nothing really else, it looks like. And we do have a CV being rallied out for Lima. So that'll, I mean, the +3 is now going, so we're definitely going to see about a 162, I would say, before it gets positioned here. It'll continue to tick up.
This is looking very, very brutal for Hitman, though, and his crew, because, he's now another 1 point behind. He's going to have to get another command. It's going to slow down his advances, and it's going to come to a very, very late game.
I mean, when you allow your opponent to just tick up to almost 200 points higher than you, which it could end up ticking to by how far that CV has to travel, it just puts you really far on the downside because you then have to look at the time on the board, and if you're only ticking at a +1, you're only getting 1 point every 4 seconds. So it's not a super amount of points that you're able to accumulate off just a +1. And as the game nears the end, it becomes more and more apparent that you're going to have to make bigger and bigger pushes to overcome that deficit that you've accumulated throughout the game.
And they're also working with the crappier side of the map. When you look at Hotel, there's no bushes on the red side at all. You can't put a command there. When you look at the middle, there's one side that has towns and a bush, and there's one side that just has the bush. There's only one spot, and it's very predictable to put a command. So, I think for their opener on this map, it almost makes sense that they would have to do a push. They have no choice.
Yeah. I do find that the red side is a little bit more effective in Hotel, personally, because you can choose to give that you can choose not to place as many points in Hotel as you do have that city to fall back to in these woods. Whereas your opponent really has to either go all the way into Hotel or stay really far back and just hide in the brush. So it does allow you to spend more points helping out in another sector to advance, whereas your opponent either has to go all in or give it up completely.
Looks like we have an insertion of infantry that has failed in the middle. It's all going to get very easily sliced up here. Unfortunately, he just didn't have effective intel on these vehicles sitting in the woods that have pretty well shut it down all by themselves.
I mean, it seems like both teams are just sending out single bombers at a time, and they're just getting shot down. So it's just points wasted, as they're not really able to land their bombs. It does look like the Mars is going to be able to get a snipe on a CV though in Lima, maybe. It is at 1 HP. He's going to try to run it away, but it could be too late. Now it looks like he might make it out of there.
Just barely, but it doesn't matter so much if he destroyed it or not. It would be huge if he destroyed it or not. He has ticked down his opponent a little bit more, and it's not going to go in a much better position now.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't really waste that many supplies and be able to get an extra, 7 points on the board, 6 points. Definitely highly effective. Those 6 points will add up if he continues to utilize that Mars to just scare off CVs continuously. However, with Hotel being captured, there will be a +1 advantage going to Pack now. And that will allow them to slowly bleed out their opponents if nothing's done to counter that. However, we do have another Mars being fired, and it might snipe that CV.
It's getting dangerously close. Looks like he's going to move it again. Forced to move it again. But the place where he's moving it to is actually within the cycle that they're aiming for.
Yeah, there's very little he can move to. It's kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. And it looks like he was damned if he did. And it's gone.
Dies right next to a plane.
Well, at least he can die in company.
So this +1 will be pretty short-lived. Looks like a infantry command will be going down south in Hotel, and basically the only spot that they can get that's in cover.
Yeah, I mean, you could move it up farther up into the bush lines on one of the other bushes, but it's just longer that they're going to have to be ticking, and they're already so far behind, they can't really afford any more ticks to continue against them at the moment.
And I guess no one actually has enough money right now to afford a command for Lima because no one's rallying one in yet. Everyone's getting units to try and do some damage.
Yeah, I mean, as long as you stop the bleed, there is still 43 minutes left on the clock, so plenty of time, and they do have some smirch firing on the woods here. Seen some nice hits on the 2A4, almost taking it out, and the Leclerc's forced to fall back to repair. And it looks like the Mars will counter battery here.
Oh snap, now the Smirches are split up, but they are sitting on the FOB, which is generally a mistake. If you sit on the FOB, it means the FOB will be taking damage from your artillery fire.
Yeah, the good news is that clusters don't actually damage the FOBs, though, thankfully. So, as long as long tube artillery doesn't get shot at it, he should be safe camping the FOB there. Although I personally like it when people move a little bit away from the FOB, just 500 meters down the road or something. Not that far away.
Where Cav has on the borders, so that the reticle will not fall on directly on the FOB.
Exactly. I mean, it's just a lot of points to be losing, and some artillery fires until you tell it not to, and if it's pointed at the FOB could die, and then that 75 points you invested in at the beginning of the game's a waste, and you're just not really making any progress. Not having to call in supply trucks and waste supplies on filling up artillery that you hadn't planned on doing. We're having a nice little armored push, it looks like, in the hotel sector.
Yeah, lots of T-72s being brought here. 2 different variants. They might, just position them defensively to try and stop any kind of pushes from Echo to Lima. Would be my best bet here. But Abrams has spotted some moving modal Stroke and will deflect them as well.
We do have the CV finally going in for Lima. It's an infantry CV, so the Smirch won't deal it near as much problems.
And this push on the south is going to be pretty brutal because it's perfectly timed. The Conquerors have both run out of rockets, so they won't be able to actually wipe out those Abrams as fast as they would have in the past. We have U.S. Marines on foot coming in to wipe out those Conqueror squads as well. So they're going to get a decent push up into the line, looks like.
We are going to have an Akula and a Ka-52 rallied out to try to halt this push. And a Stinger squad coming up, maybe to try to snipe this Ka-52. Yeah, it looks like it is aiming, and he does land one hit. And the second one is going to try to hit it as well. And the Ka-52 will go down.
Well, that was a pretty expensive investment. He still has the Akula, which is your tank slayer, which is going to cause a lot of this to halt. But he has basically got his U.S. Marines into that tree line, so he'll have a much better vision, and he'll be in a good position to actually wipe out that command that's just sitting right in front of him in the woods.
Yeah, if he can manage to spot it. It is still hidden at the moment. We did have some nice Mars shots going in on that woods to scare the tanks away. I would have liked to see that Mars shoot before the push, just to force those tanks out of the woods.
But he is using that to bring his Abrams up, so, like, he will do damage.
He will. And we will have a 29M coming in for that Abrams. The cluster bombs on the 29M are just not really there. Just not able to really deal as much damage as would like. But it does look like the A1 Abrams is going to go down here.
And the command is actually forced to pull back. Now, in the meantime, they do have a command at the middle area, so they're not bleeding out or anything like that. They bled out 26 points themselves of the enemy. It won't take too much longer before Blue actually brings in a command of their own. And unlike Red, they have a lot of great locations to put it.
I would say a few. You really only have that bush, or if you can manage to push up to that hedgerow. Because otherwise it kind of sits in the middle. The little solo trees don't really offer cover, sadly. Although I think it'd be kind of cool if you could go hang out in the cornfields. Or prairie fields, I guess is what those are.
Well, this is based on China, isn't it? So wouldn't this be like rice?
Rice paddies, maybe?
Rice paddy fields.
We do have another Twardy being rallied out by Fox for the middle. It looks like those Marines were pretty handily stopped there.
I mean, the middle is just not going to be a good spot to attack right now. It's just loaded full of units, and these smoke plays are rather cute. But with the number of air helicopter skirmishing units, the number of tanks, the number of angles, it's going to be very hard to get any number of forces across that can actually deal with the entrenched forces here.
I would like to see maybe more recon used at the base of Hotel, and you could almost shut down that bridge, which forces your opponent to, use the other bridge closer to Delta, which does slow them down as your units don't always follow the correct mapping patterns, and you can sometimes get some nice snipes.
Oh yeah, I mean, Cav could have moved up almost any point in this game and grabbed control of both bridges, in fact.
If you're able to grab control of both those bridges, it makes it really hard to reinforce the city, as they do have to come from Alpha then, because they don't automatically go down that Delta road and up. They usually come down the other road for some unknown reason. I blame it on mapping. You have some more Smirch firing in the woods, though.
You run into bridges, though, and run into dead corpses of other tanks.
It's true.
Playing, it's a very well-disciplined player, though. He did, in fact, pull back pretty much everything before anything took a hit. And all you can see is just, dead forest here, nothing else.
Yeah, I think it'd be kind of cool if once the forest is, destroyed from fire or Smirch, if it stopped offering cover. But it does look like some Mars are going to be firing, and they do manage to get the CV in Kilo. I'm not sure if the Smirch was firing next to that, or if they just randomly fired there, so Very, very nice pickup.
Now, I think what happened was the Smirch was on the most western border, and he was actually aiming for the Smirch. That's the reticle seems to indicate that, and still,
Yeah.
you know, that's gonna be a huge setback. Now they have to pull a command back.
Oh, that looks like they're just going to buy one. So for about 140 points, as they did bring it out in the K-29 TB. So they'll be able to land that helicopter there, but they will have stopped the bleeding again as NATO, so that'll be extremely helpful for them.
Now on the south, they have a recon helicopter deployed. Recon helicopter, when in the air, can see over these hedgerows, and if positioned appropriately, it'll actually be able to spot this command relatively easily. Not going to push too aggressively though, because he's probably terrified of the possible threat of Tunguska's.
Yep. And it does look like that Bradley is going to be able to get that one shot on the BWR, and the second one should probably kill it, and that will... Oh, never mind, it missed.
He'll probably move up in another second. The big threat there was the Conquerors, which have been wiped out since then. But it's also a T-55 recon tank coming in.
I really like those little recon tanks. They're able to take a little bit of a pounding with their, I want to say 6 armor. Oh, 7. And, you know, just kind of tank a little bit of damage, so they're able to move up with your tanks at about the same speed as your tanks. So. Bit of a nice snipe on that A1 Abrams with the Smirch, and it looks like they managed to pick up the Hawk as well.
Yeah, rather brutal. This artillery play either forces you to play aggressively or to pull back, and both sides are basically rallying out retarded numbers of artillery just for this exact purpose. You know, there's how many Kairae here? There are like 4 of them, all sitting on the river tiles here to minimize counter artillery damage.
Yep, as there's no splash damage in the water, which is extremely helpful.
Somewhat overpowered, maybe game breaking.
It can be. Another nice strategy is on some maps you have a little water tile inside your CV spawn zone, and you can actually place one of the amphibious CVs inside that river water thing, and it won't take splash damage off artillery that's shot at it. So gives it a little bit of a longer life if your opponent doesn't have vision on it, be able to shoot. One of the pluses, I guess, of taking a higher price CV. We have another Patriot being rallied out, so that'll be 2 for the NATO side.
Dondova powered units. Practically unkillable.
They are extremely annoying. If properly micro, it's almost impossible to kill them, as most players leave them off at all times and then turn them on once they see a plane. And if you continue to fly like an ASF behind your lines, you'll be able to see what planes your opponent's pulled out, and you'll be able to see if that's a seed plane or not, and be able to plan whether or not to turn on your Patriot at a certain time.
These radar planes are trying to pick off anything they can, but all the radar devices, basically because you're playing with good players, all have been turned off.
Yep.
So it's forced to retreat. So now it's a pretty delicate situation. I mean, you know, the ha-ha situation is that Reddit does in fact know where the command squad is in Hotel. They're very aware of that. They haven't been reacting appropriately. They need to
And they do just ping it, so...
They need to get out something like a mortar or tube artillery or something along those lines. Just kind of wipe that out real quick.
Yep. Or just use a bomber if you don't mind losing it. However, after seeing the ECR drive over, they know that there's just one AA piece at the moment, so they could feel quite confident in trying to bomb it, as the other Tunguska M has no missiles and its gun is off. so will not engage. You have a smirch being fired on the side of the town here. Doing quite a bit of damage to the recon vehicles and the tanks.
Brazen amounts of damage, losing a recon vehicle and another vehicle, and sorry, 2 vehicles gone.
Yep.
Highly successful volley. Looks like he's running out of fob right now, the supplies, and it looks like same thing with blue. These Mars have been abusing it the whole game, and soon it looks like these rocket artilleries will be retiring.
Well, they could still call out supply vehicles, of course, depending on how much supplies they decided to bring in their deck. However, it's usually best to bring 2 fobs on average for a 3-person team. And depending on the amount of artillery, you can bring 3 to 4 on a 4-player team. Just because everybody has mortars, everybody has tanks that need to repair up, etc. More cost effective. A lot of long, heavy artillery firing from the VPM there with the mortars. Firing into Lima, trying to get that recon vehicle. It looks like it will skate out.
I'm very much surprised that this has stayed kind of a deadlock as long as it has. It feels that if both positions just put down some solid stationary defenses in the middle, they could easily push out Hotel, but Hotel's been very, very light, actually.
Like the RBF will go down to the Mistrals. And the CV has been spotted, is being shot at by the Abrams there. And the MiG-29M will go down as well to the Patriot.
Patriot is so good. Now, they did have a command around here somewhere. Maybe they moved it to a new location. No, it's still in the helicopter, actually. So they can go ahead and grab this hotel base and go back to bleeding out this squad relatively soon.
You have Avenger getting a nice kill there and picking up the elite stat. So that'll make that Avenger extremely deadly to anything. And it looks like there's a little autocannon push going on the side of Hotel towards the woods with the VAB T-20s. And the AMX 40s backing it up with the Mistral squad to provide some AA.
And actually able to enter the woods. Now there is a Motostrelki there, but if they can gain vision, they can wipe those out without even needing to engage them.
We'll have a T-72B rallied out though, but the AMX 40s will make short work of that tank with their 19 AP.
And basically, their goal has been accomplished. They wanted to remove that strip of woods there because that is a position where they can control the bridges, or the southern bridge, I should say. And it also will stop the enemy from being able to push into the middle as well.
Yep. Yeah, you really want Hotel to either be a stalemate if you're already ahead, or you want to completely control it. And the only downside of Red having that city there at the base is that it's really hard to fortify and take. However, once you take the city, then you're good to go. Because it's really hard to come back across that bridge with the city sitting right there on the bridge entrance. So you're able to really secure Hotel once if Blue's able to push all the way to that city blocks there. You have a Moderna being brought out though to retake Hotel.
And then one Spetsnaz Guru that's just been sitting there is providing just ridiculous amounts of vision for exactly what's being rallied out, and this is going to allow them to create the perfect cocktail of defense.
It's just going to allow them to buy what they need to buy. It looks like they are now shooting artillery at the M1A1. Trying to get some extra damage on it. Panic it, as it doesn't have an autoloader. That extra damage will cause it to fire much slower than it otherwise would.
Oh, they can just outright kill this thing with artillery. It's now down to 2 hit points.
Looks like the Abram will fall back to try to repair itself up.
And Base Box will once again come back in, re-grab this hotel base, wiping out basically all these vehicles. Unfortunately, all those nice steady units that were holding that ground there for them have all been wiped out. He's actually going to run a squad of Rimas across open ground to try and get some rocket shots on some of these tanks. But I do not foresee any good coming from this.
No, they just don't really have the range at 525. If they had about 875, they might have a chance with maybe some Panzer Grenadier 90s, but that 525 range is just way too short to be trying to accomplish that mission there.
And we could potentially see another command coming up relatively soon from this red team. Just because they kind of grab that one little notch of base that they've always grabbed. They definitely can't do a stalemate right now. They need to actually kill tanks, kill vehicles, push up beyond hotel.
Yeah, they definitely need to get to about, I want to say, and they do have a CV sitting just outside of hotel. They haven't chosen to push it up. For red team to get a tie, they're going to need about a 180, I believe. You need about 10% more. Or you need 10% less points than your opponent to manage to get a draw, or vice versa. So red team definitely needs to capture hotel for at least another 50 points to be able to score that draw. It looks like that Sea Hornet's just going to town right now.
There are some anti-air units that looks like it will escape.
It looks like that Vad Mephisto was able to get a nice side shot on that Moderna there and just take it out. Nice pickup there.
Oh, on our northern flank, we actually have a push happening here. Oh my god. That's what you're talking about, this Moderna. And actually able to completely insert here. Lots of infantry coming in to reinforce.
Yeah, it looks like Hitman forgot to turn off his radar, though, and that ECR was able to pick off quite a bit of the AA that was sitting here.
And those Tors are not cheap to replace at all.
No, they're not. They're looking at about 80 points apiece. It's just a lot of money. We are starting to see a lot of infantry being rallied out for Bravo. It's going to be extremely hard for Pack to continue this push if they don't have more infantry being rallied out here. And we do have a 2A5 coming up the side to support the push, and that'll pretty much force the Moderna to fall back.
And it's unfortunately just going to be too long before these infantry actually arrive to the front lines. They will show up when the battle is said and done.
I mean, one good thing you can say about this push is that it's forced NATO to deal with this push, and the other Eurocorps player that was playing in the middle is now forced to help out at Bravo versus helping the push in Hotel, so they've kind of stalled it out. And we do have a CV being rallied out for Hotel, it looks like.
Finally. It's kind of weird that this command infantry group isn't just moved over a little bit to the left, just so they can, get some points out of it.
I think they might have forgotten it's there. I do that all the time, personally. I forget that I have units on the field, and I think that I've clicked for them to unload, or I think I've clicked the sector for them to go in, and they're actually standing just outside of it. Kind of embarrassing.
Yeah. I'm guilty. I'm actually worse than that. I'm guilty of doing what Kairae is doing right now, just sitting vehicles with infantry in them without deploying the infantry, all because you're too focused on your own front, which would be for him the middle, and effectively losing more infantry than he should just from random artillery shots.
Yeah, definitely not always the most effective thing. We do have a nice little Mars shot coming in, but it doesn't look like it's going to be able to hit anything. But I do like how he was trying to anticipate where the reinforcements might have been coming from and try to slow those down from coming inside Bravo.
So on the southern front, looks like the town has been completely cleared out. The command that was being rallied in was gunned down viciously, and they're once again able to move that command up, get points, get some Abrams in position to actually do a tactical push in towards their spawn point, possibly hold that bridge off.
I mean, this is what I was talking about earlier. On this map, there's so many 2-point bases that you have to make the sacrifice of, do we take the 2-point bases and either break even or tick a bunch, or do we try to play really aggressive and take territory? And if you go for the really aggressive approach, if your opponent's bought CVs and you fail, then you are severely behind in terms of points, as we see Hitman's team at the moment.
And in
Only
order to get a
20
win
minutes
here,
left.
in order to get a win, they're going to have to hold the base for about 8 minutes. They can tie with 4 minutes, but they'll need about 8 minutes or so for a win.
Yeah, I think they're going to need about a 250 score. Have a lot of the AA that just doesn't have supplies at the moment, that just really need supplies here on the outside of Hotel. And it looks like NATO's was able to capture Hotel finally, so that'll allow them to tick even more. It'll make Pact have to force themselves across the area even more.
And we're
It
seeing
is
a pretty
interesting.
nasty tank push on the south right now. Just ridiculous numbers of tanks coming across, pushing back blue once again.
Yeah, but without the AA to protect them, it looks like they're just going to all go down to the Super Etnards here. You
I
have
believe they're Super Nintendos actually.
Super Nintendos, okay. You like the Super Nintendo? It was one of my favorite game. Bit of a deagle that might have been a little mismicroed. It went in and gun ran a there instead of dropping its bombs, but it does look like it made it out alive, so all is not lost.
And that was the end of another yo-yo push. But they did get rid of all but one of the Abrams, so they didn't do so horribly there. But now they're throwing away a MiG-29.
Yeah, I think it was coming in to bomb, maybe those light riflemen. It still should make it out, it looks like it did. At 40% ECM just helps that MiG-29S just get in and out whenever it needs to. Definitely your quick reaction bomber there for Pact.
And this could be close to an end here for Hitman's crew. Ooh, good. Random hit on a command kills Hotel. He's got to get those points going. If he could eliminate Bravo, that would be the money right now.
Yeah, I really would like to see a CV rallied out from Bravo instead of doing that tank push on the Hotel. I think that a CV rallied out for Bravo would have been much more effective in terms of points gained. They had two different bushes they could have placed that tank or CV in, and both of those would have been highly effective.
This is also a place where they could very easily do a mortar smoke push across, get infantry engaged into those southern towns, and just grab that basic crossroad there. They haven't done that because they've been doing that in the middle instead, where it's just too large of an area.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of weird pushes going on in this game, to be honest. A lot of seed aircraft being used by NATO just to prevent Pact from having a huge AA net. And I mean, the MiG-23 MLs have been doing some nice work this game in terms of picking off NATO airplanes continuously, but they have been going down slowly but surely to the rolling threes and the Patriots.
These Leclercs in the south here actually have the bridge relatively covered from anything coming forward. So once they get a new command in place, it's just going to be a matter of setting up that effective anti-air network and non-stop artillery at that bridge area when infantry show up.
Looks like a bomber's going to come in and finish off those Motostrzelski that were sitting in the woods there. Or it'll completely miss them and only manage to clip one guy.
Yeah, he was going for the kind of meta play. He was looking to where the Motostrzelskis were heading as opposed to where they were.
I think he was counting on his opponent chasing that Leclerc, and he didn't chase, and a lot of other stuff going on in the game. You don't always have time to chase stuff down.
By the way, it looks like in the north, a napalm strike has basically forced the command infantry to move into a new location, clip them for relatively little bit. Now with only one hit point left, they could die to almost anything right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's getting to that time where Pact is definitely going to have to focus on this Bravo sector instead of that hotel sector. Hotel sector's pretty much gone. More of just everything should be focused on this Bravo sector if you hope to win, as you really do need that +2 if you're going to win at 14 minutes left. Because you have to account for about 4 minutes trying to push through, 4 to 5 minutes trying to push through and take it. Then that gives you about 10 minutes to actually tick your score.
I mean, right now they're all in, so what they should be doing at this very moment, making their push, rallying a command right away. Assume they're going to win, because if they don't win, they already lose.
Yeah, CV should have already been rallied out, I feel. Like I said earlier, instead of doing that push on hotel, if they'd rallied out a CV, they could, they'd still be ticking at about a +2 right now. And that would just be because, or they'd be ticking at a +1, I guess, because hotel has now gone to the NATO forces. But they would cancel out that +2 zone for Pact, which would be, or NATO, which would be very helpful. They just don't really have the AA on the field to deal with all these Wild Weasels and Mirage SFs and the DM planes that have just continued to come in.
It's like they need something like the Patriot or something along these lines.
Yeah, that would be good too. Pact's not allowed to have a Patriot.
It's a cruel, cruel world.
That it is.
I'm just surprised that with the number of planes that have been lost in this game, how there's always just a constant stream of new planes being brought out.
We do finally have the CV rallied out for Bravo.
Looks good. We'll knock out that zone, give them a +1.
They need to hold that +1. If they can manage to actually capture the zone, that could be highly effective for Pact, as they'll get a +2 advantage.
Or even better, actually, we'll get a +4? +3.
Maybe
advantage.
+3, yeah.
But I just don't foresee that happening. Tiger had being rallied in here to try and clean up the tanks and infantry. And with the number of forces, infantry, tanks, whatnot, all pushing back, that Furungs does not long for this world.
No, and both the Wilk and the Moderna are heavily damaged at the moment. It's hard for them to hold here. They're having more Mars fire on the prams here, and that'll pretty much shut down that mortar support that they were getting for a while. We're gonna have a Strop 2 come in and try to hold these Fallschirmjäger 90s off.
He's got the vision, and one more shot will get rid of that Moderna.
Does go down, and it looks like the Fallschirmjäger 90s managed to clip that Strop before it could come in range and fire. We'll have a Barentino firing here on the other side of the city, shutting off that reinforcement point. We'll have the other Barentino, looks like, firing 9 rounds. The other side sector there.
God, that poor Falstrom Yager squad just might not be able to make it for the food wrongs, which is brutal as is.
Yeah, it looks like the Panthers are going to come out with the Had. And I like how he's placed the Panther right in front of the Had, just in case there's a strop or something. Able to better protect it. Like these Tiger Hads are going to make short work of that Wilk that's just all by itself at the moment.
Along with this rocket artillery support, they're getting a ridiculous amount of damage on a small amount of area. Trying to clear out any possible infantry, and the Falstrom Jagers are going to move in and steal both supply trucks, and the Fugongs will die.
Very nice pickup for NATO there. I mean, it's always nice when you can capture your enemy's full supply trucks, and it's just, who doesn't like free stuff?
Who doesn't like free stuff, indeed? I always think it's free stuff with a catch.
So that's true. I mean, it's kind of like going to the supermarket and they're like, would you like to try this? And I mean, you shouldn't try it because that means you're just going to buy it because you know it's going to be awesome. But you try it anyway because it's free. And then, they got it all planned out.
Plot twist, they're Mormons, they were selling religion. So usually what happens to me when I get free trucks is that the enemy fires on them, they're full, and they just kill whatever my infantry with them.
Yeah. It is one tactic you can use. I mean, empty supply trucks, you can use them to hurt your enemy's units. Although I can't seem to ever do that correctly, so. Like a lot of helicopters were used in Hotel to a negligible effect, not really managing to kill anything of value. Losing them all, so. Pact is still ticking at a +1 at the moment, as they were able to kill that Bravo CV with the Barentino. But I'm sure another CV is on its way now. 2 CVs are on their way to Bravo.
It's at that point in the match, well, why wouldn't you bring 2 CVs? There's enough forces on the map to hold off any kind of attack. The scariest thing right now is just randomly losing a command.
Looks like the Smirches are completely out of ammo with the fob dry and no supply trucks being rallied out for them to continue to fire. Like pretty much all the artillery's run out of ammo for at least the Pact. Like NATO's pretty much out of ammo as well. Attackham's both, well, one of the Attackham's still has ammo, but 3 full fobs used from NATO. So there was definitely a lot of helicopter repairs and artillery fire going on. Little bit of an argument going on at the top of Bravo over whose CV gets to go hide in that bush.
Peter said both people are saying, we'll put them in the same place. They will never suspect this brilliant strategy.
They might not. There's some wacky strategies that you can do to hide out units in this game, and sometimes the wackiest strategy no one really expects.
Yes, I never do suspect those helicopters.
I still don't know how to deal with those very well.
That's what separates the best and the worst.
I think so. I mean, I think you just actually have to have a deck designed to deal with the helicopter all in.
But then at the same time, they have to deal with the armor all in as well, which is...
which completely counters your helicopter all in, so... Or anti-helicopter all in. I do like how he's placed the smalls on the southern bridge. I would like to see him go one more building up, but they are able to pretty much shut down that bridge access there.
And of course, for people who are unaware, like, most bridges have a weird line of sight where they can't see anything until they're off the bridge. And then just instantly die.
Yep. We'll have a Sea Hornet come in, and it looks like it's going to take out one of the Torties there. Run away.
It just looks like non-stop bombing, just trying to pick up a few extra points on the scale to look much better in the score after the fact.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a good game overall, I'd have to say. I mean,
I think it came down, if anything, to the map imbalances. Like, once that
yeah.
town was grabbed by the Smoths, there's nothing that can happen to the southern flank. The fact that there are towns in the middle prevented any kind of push from our pack players.
Yes.
Probably, had these sides been flipped, I'd say probably 99.9% of the time that Hitman probably would have won it, and they probably both played very evenly, just map imbalances decided to win.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think Desperation's kind of sitting in here. Desperation plays, I should say. Mobs of T-72s up front. No real air cover coming in until a little bit later. The Strops are coming in. Just not really in position to actually help right now, though. And trying to push as far as you can to get some command kills, but it'll be for naught.
And I want to say one of the CVs might have died.
It appears so. The one that was in the forward woods has fallen, and the P4 PC is still alive. But the thing is, where it doesn't matter so much is that there's only 5 minutes left. They need to get 100 points.
They would have to capture Bravo, which would be very hard to do at the moment. They just don't have the infantry inside the sector. They do have a CV coming up, but it's almost too little too late.
With 1 point ticking, the rate of ticking in the game is 1 point every 3 seconds for a 1 point base. So, you're looking at, they might be able to gain, just by killing that command, they might be able to gain like 80 points, which is just not enough.
Yeah, they're just too far behind. They would need about 280 to tie the game. Don't see them able to get that before the end of the game. It looks like the Tungustas were accidentally left on, and that ECR was able to pick up both of them. Nice pickup there by NATO.
Solid players all around, though. Team Reddit picking up a solid win here against 3 very, very good players. Maybe we'll see more of them in the future.
It looks like Pact has realized the inevitable defeat.
And won't be too long before the others throw in the towel. Cav gone as well. So there's actually a point in this game where they were using their tube artillery as tanks because they had no more ammunition left for their artillery.
Exactly. I mean, they do have the heat gun, so they're just not really the most effective tank in the world. They can somewhat support a town push, but it's usually better just to refill them with ammo if possible.
I guess Base Box is going to stay in for one last little hurrah, and then...
Yeah, maybe he's trying to get one last kill with his artillery or something. Trying to wipe out that last little annoying unit. It was a pretty close game considering how long the game went in comparison to kills and losses.
Kairae was a sick killer boss, of course.
Yeah, I think the AA really played a difference in terms of kills and losses. The majority of what the red team lost was due to a lack of AA and their planes going down due to the AA of the enemy team.
And it's really, really solid use of those Tornado ECRs.
Yeah, all the seed aircraft from the Ravens to the Wild Weasels to the ECRs just completely decimated the air defenses of Pact, not able to really combat that and protect their tanks as well as they would have liked.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Trollmaker. Thank you guys for watching. I'd like to take this special opportunity to promote my friend Gripper. He has his own channel called Count Gripper. Every single day he is doing a wargame cast from some of the best, some of the top, and some of the average players in the game, giving gameplay tips and advice, and showing some very strong, powerful matches. As well, big shout out to the communities of Reddit and Wargame. You can find Reddit at reddit.com/r/wargame, And the Wargame forums on the Wargame Red Dragon official website is also a great source of information on the game. We have Black Friday sales coming up relatively soon, and if you're a new player from that, you will definitely want to check out one of these great resources to get to know the game. Until next time, see you guys later.